you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
I am the longest. Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me. Aren't you?
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
Just been revoked.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Because it is my name!
I see, Dave.
Today, Junior?
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What?
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
You like scary?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The price is wrong, bitch.
All right. Hopefully this is all working well. We've taken a little bit of a break from podcasting for a bit, so I'm trying to get myself back into the mix of things. And I just am looking over here and make sure it looks like everything's good. So pardon the rambling there. Like I said, been a little bit rusty, been out of practice. We took a little unexpected break. Unexpected break here these past couple weeks, Leslie, right?
Yeah, like 3-4 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely not intentional on my end.
Hey,
you had no. Let me rephrase that, as I was about to say before you jumped in there. You had legitimate reasons. I didn't, except that the other co-host of the show was really flaky with his scheduling. So we had intended to do gaming streams. We had intended to do Spider-Man reviews. We had a whole bunch of stuff planned, and he could not get his schedule right. And so I'm always better when I'm with you guys. So we just didn't work out well these past couple weeks. Plus, you had the holidays. We had Christmas and New Year's here. So and plus work was a little bit hectic as well. So we're back to it. We got some plans for 2022 before we get into the review. Not that we have a definite date started yet, but we do have the intent to make a live stream of the podcast available once a week, rotating out my co-host, since I'm the one who operates everything. You'll always see my unlovely face, but we'll be rotating out the co-host. I say that now, but with Pat and his scheduling, who knows what's going to happen. But we intend to do live streaming of the podcast, talking about current event stuff, movies and shows and whatnot that's coming out that weekend.
current event movies and shows, not current events like politics.
Well, no.
At least not on the one with me.
No, and if, heck, we get enough of that out of me in the gaming streams. When Johnny asks me an innocent question about Matrix Resurrections, and I go off on a tirade about the Wachowskis. We don't want to do the politics stuff too much, but that would be its own separate show if we get that. But no, we just want to build up the audience and make it more interactive, where if you guys are listening and watching us live, you can interact within the chat, and I think that would be a great way to cultivate the podcast and make it grow. So with that whole schmazz out of the way, and also the whole YouTube stuff of like, comment, share, subscribe, let's just go ahead and get right into it, because we're a little delayed on getting this review out. But I
feel like that's mostly my fault.
Well, yeah, you didn't have any legitimate reasons whatsoever for having a medical procedure scheduled pretty much right on the finale date.
Pretty much, yeah. So a few weeks ago, I don't remember, but we said in the introduction or whatever, we were hoping that we could record something because I was feeling iffy and there was other stuff going on. So this whole thing of me being iffy is I've been having apparently gallbladder issues. So I had my gallbladder removed right on December 23rd.
Yeah, that's nothing serious. You know, nothing. You bounce
my
back from that.
My gallbladder's trying to kill me.
Well, we're just glad everything went well.
Yeah.
You know, I know that was not a great period of time for you, but I know it was very stressful and such. But we're just glad everything worked out and you're doing well and on the rebound and get to go back to work on Monday. So
on Monday?
Well, trust me, I don't either. But yeah, so you know, we did take a little bit of a break. I'm sure everyone else has covered the finale and episode 5 of Hawkeye ad nauseum, especially in conjunction with Spider-Man. We'll have a separate Spider-Man review video coming out at some point. And the one reason why that was delayed was we really didn't want to spoil it for anyone, especially getting to stay away from spoilers myself. It was really nice to go into that film clean and not have anything ruined for me. Now at this point, I think everyone and their brother on Facebook, on Twitter, has probably ruined the film for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. So I think we'll be pretty safe to do a spoiler review at that point.
The biggest spoiler thing for me is YouTube, the thumbnails that people use, because I'm very good about being able to stay away from any other spoilers kind of out on the internet or not having things like pop up in my Facebook feed. But when I go on YouTube and I'm just kind of scrolling through videos, I mean, I can't not see the thumbnail that you chose for your video. So a lot of that was like, oh, scroll past that, you know, or don't look at that, because they'd have like a clear image of something from like straight and clearly a spoiler, and I'm like, come on, man.
Well, that was my
wait like at least even a whole week, like geez.
That was my thing of like a YouTuber. Now they didn't use anything from the movie itself, but their thumbnail. Like, it wasn't a spoiler outright, but, like, seeing it and kind of his wording of his community post was like, well, crap, like, that's kind of, it feels spoiler-ish, even though he wasn't spoiling it in any actual fashion, but it was like, after seeing the movie, it's like, well, yeah, it's kind of a spoiler, you know? Like, knowing it now, in retrospect, it is kind of a spoiler, and so that was one thing we definitely wanted to avoid. And like I told my sister-in-law right before Christmas, because she hadn't quite seen it yet, but her husband, my brother, and my nephew got to like see it themselves opening night. I told her, I was like, well, here's my non-spoiler review, and this would have been what our non-spoiler review video would have been, was it's good, go see it. You know, because you would have to worry with that about any minute detail kind of even unintentionally spoiling even a small fraction of that movie, because it was very nice to go into it very blind and having all of the unexpected surprises surprise me, rather than being like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and wrap up our reviews of Hawkeye episodes 5 and 6, and also kind of talk a little bit, because you and I had talked about this, I think, in one of the previous Hawkeye videos about the Netflix shows and how they would fit within this based on some stuff Kevin Feige had said, and with stuff that happens specifically in episode 6 of Hawkeye and set up in episode 5. How this kind of, if the Netflix shows might be impacted or incorporated in the MCU going forward. So again, if you haven't seen episodes 5 and 6, which, what are you doing? Go out and watch them. They've been out for a couple weeks now. Spoilers ahead for both episodes. I did not get a chance to rewatch them before this, so I'm relying on Leslie, because she's very, very thorough and far more able to rewatch stuff consistently than I am, to carry me on any of the things that I might have missed or don't really remember from the episodes. I do remember specifically liking both episodes.
Yeah.
And again, kind of my overall analysis of Hawkeye as a series itself is,
it's good, go watch it.
Well, yes, but Falcon and Winter Soldier, this is how you do multiple plot lines and wrap them up sufficiently.
Yeah.
I think that this show itself is the highlight of why Falcon and Winter Soldier failed, because even in episode 3 of Hawkeye, I was being a little concerned of, you've got the tracksuit mafia, you've got the Armand murder, you've got the swordsman, you've got the Ronin outfit, you've got all of these intermixing plots, and you don't know how they're going to wrap it up, especially having seen how they failed with Falcon and Winter Soldier. And to get by episode 5 and definitely episode 6 going, you did it. You tied in everything perfectly without any issue, without any overfilling. Heck, even when we had Yelena introduced in episode 4, I'm like, great, here's another character you're introducing for 5 seconds. And I don't know how you're going to conveniently wrap this up in 2 episodes. And they did. And they did it well. And in fact, it actually makes Black Widow retroactively a little bit better, considering how things work out in this series. So episode 5 is entitled Ronin. The basic, because I'm not going to remember all the plot details, but the plot is Clint decides to have a face-to-face meeting with Maya after he learns that she believes that he killed her father, so they can settle matters between them. Meanwhile, Kate has her own face-to-face meeting with Yelena, who reveals why she wants Clint dead. And that's, quite frankly, that's the episode. Boiled down to the major plot points. There are a little minor stuff here and there with the LARPers a little bit, getting stuff back. But Clint is trying to take responsibility for his actions as Ronin, but also sending Maya down the right path. Rather than her being solely focused on revenge on him, he was the middleman, essentially, in the murder of her father. And he is setting her on her revenge path on the actual person who targeted her father. I
think that's what he's doing.
Well, no, I'm not saying like that's intentionally what he's doing, but that's what he does. I mean,
that's what ends up happening. But I think his intention was to be like, stop. Especially in the other episode when he's talking to Kazi and he's like, she's going to get killed. And I don't know if he knew that he was the informant or not, but kind of like, she's going to get killed if she continues on. And as we reveal in episode 5, Kingpin confirmed.
Right.
But
Vincent D'Onofrio, Kingpin, confirmed.
Right, but I think it was he is coming from a place of, I'm trying to save your life and I'm trying to live up to the sacrifice Natasha made for me. And of course, it just turns that she's like, just takes that anger and rage and takes it from him onto Kingpin, which is what happens.
Well,
and
right.
I think it's going to end up being the plot of her show.
His intent was definitely like taking responsibility for his actions and not have her go down the path he went for revenge after losing his family to Thanos, essentially. But again, like the thing being like your misplaced rage is not necessarily towards me, but think about who would have tipped me off to where your father was and who would wanted him eliminated. And that's what sends her down that path of revenge. And then, you have what is probably one of the best scenes with Haley Stenfield and Florence Pugh, the macaroni scene, the mac and cheese scene, where they're just having this fun. I think, what did I see it labeled? Chaotic friendship or something like that. Where
it's the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, like It was just very well done, and I think it's giving her, Yelena and Florence Pugh, like more time to develop as a character. Because we got her a lot of focus in on Black Widow, but like I didn't really feel like I got to know Yelena, and like because I mean for the most part she was under the mind control, right? So like it wasn't like we got to really see her personality or who she truly is until like near the end of Black Widow, and here we get to really see her grow and flourish between these 2 episodes. Because I was worried when they introduced her at the end of episode 4, how are you going to really give her time to grow, right? Because you've got all these other plot points, you're not going to do like a 2-hour long episode. and then have a finale episode on top of that to give her ample room to grow. But I think this exposition scene between her and Kate does what it needs to do to alleviate those issues of how are you going to fit everything in. She clearly states what she's going to do. She's after Clint for murdering her sister, and Kate going, that's not exactly what happened, and putting the bug in her ear of like, much like Clint does with Maya, about think about who would have hired me or who would have given me the information. Who hired you, Yelena, to go after Clint? And that allows Yelena to go kind of on her own separate journey to figure out what actually is going on, and that gives us the Kingpin reveal at the end of the episode. And of course, we also get more information about the wristwatch too, or the Rolex, whatever, and what that plays more into a factor of. But yeah, episode 6 I think was very good. In the sense of it's not fully action oriented. You have the really good, say, used car lot scene where, they were planning to basically ambush Clint and kill him, and he basically takes out everybody, and it's a one-on-one with Maya, and he gets her kind of pinned down, and he has that heart-to-heart with her. Not to mention also the very powerful scene of him going to the memorial and taking out his hearing aid so all of the background noise isn't impacting him, and having his one-on-one with Nat. Not that she's in the episode herself, but like it's a very... I think it's one of the reasons why I like Jeremy Renner as Clint. Like, it's a very heartfelt scene, and you kind of get the thought that he might just go straight out and kill Maya to end it, but that's not really what his intent is to do. Again, he's trying to honor her sacrifice. So that's primarily what this episode is. It's really kind of a filler episode without feeling like a filler episode. It's doing everything to tie in all of these plot lines together, because we find out basically, and more so in the next episode, Kingpin is in charge of the Tracksuit Mafia. So like that's what impacts all of this, and why the Tracksuit Mafia was at the place. Also Kate's mom's kind of connections, and it's just a lot of the stuff started really kind of came to fruition and made sense, and was leading me to believe that the finale was going to be a very satisfying finale, unlike Falcon and Winter Soldier. So enough rambling from me kind of on the episode. What do you have to say about the episode?
So we're still on episode 5. I know you said episode 6 later. We're still on
Right.
5.
We're still talking about 5.
I didn't feel like it was so much a filler episode as it was just a good plot development episode, which I guess could kind of be seen as filler, but it was very good at, like, I like that it went ahead and started with Yelena showing us where she was in Blip. And
yes,
the Blip from her perspective.
Not to interrupt you really quick, because this is what I told you once I'd watched the episode. I feel like this should have been, if not the first post-credit scene, for sure like the second post-credit scene of Black Widow, because it would have made things for how things turn out in Infinity War and Endgame with Nat would have made more sense, knowing like Yelena was blipped. Probably the entire family was blipped. And so that's why Nat is like, you guys are my only family now, because they don't really know, except for Clint, really know about her extended family. Right.
That's part of where I feel like, again, like the Black Widow movie was a failure on Marvel's part, on Feige's part, not the movie itself, but the planning out the timing of it, that we never got to develop those relationships, so it really didn't matter.
Right.
So much, and everything went so fast. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that piece, her being blipped and then coming back and cutting right where they did on the I need to find Natasha, because that immediate moment, that's when the battle's taking place.
Right.
So she doesn't know that she's gone yet. Like, nobody knows that yet, because that last battle is taking place that second. So, when we start there, it's nice to see that from her perspective. It's nice to, like, basically exactly where we left her at Black Widow is going out looking for the rest of the widows and trying to help them. So we were already seeing the development from there, because I think they're assuming you've watched Black Widow, now you've come to this, you know who the character is, and you've already got a good progression of her development even just from that, knowing like, oh, she's continued on exactly like she said she would with Nat, you know, and moving on from there. So I like that we opened there. And it was another really cool, interesting scene of seeing the blip, because you see how the bathroom changes like slowly around her from that green, or from cream to the green color.
Yeah.
That was really interesting, because the last time we saw it in WandaVision, what's her name? Monica was still in the same hospital room, so the hospital room.
Right. We just saw we just kind of saw Monica like reform, whereas with like Yelena, we saw the room transform.
The room. Yeah. And I mean, that makes sense. Like, people paint their house and stuff, whereas like the hospital probably didn't get a new coat of paint in those 5 years.
Right.
You know? But yeah, we do go straight from there basically to like the wrapping it up. You know, she's having her low moment with her mom, and I'm not a hero, you know, and everybody's kind of doing their thing. And Clint goes to Grills, and beautiful, beautiful dog. I think the dog's name is Jolt, the actual dog.
Oh, okay. Because Lucky is the name that they land on for him. Right?
Yeah. I think the dog actor's name is Jolt. He's such a cute dog. And of course we get you want to see the costumes, and of course they can't show them to you yet because it's not the final episode.
Right.
You know, but just going through those progressions, we get the montage that we've needed about, or does it happen in the next episode, about making more arrows?
That's in the second, or in episode 6, yeah.
The next one, yeah, because that's in a montage I've wanted to see for a while. Of course, I'm always like, doesn't that throw off the weight of the arrow and everything? But of course, he's a great shot, so, you know, when you're adding all this stuff onto it.
I'm sure he figures out how to adjust it.
But yeah, he does do the memorial scene. He talks to Laura, his wife, you know, and I understand, you know, that he's going to go off and do this. I like that when he came up on Kazi, his immediate was like, yeah, let's try and talk about this. Like, dude, you're lucky he didn't just chop your head off.
Right.
Like, immediately. And of course he's in the sniper position again, foreshadow that he's going to be in the sniper position.
Right.
I like the fight with him and Maya. I did see some complaints from reviewers. They're like, you should be able to take her down instantly. And I'm like, again, I feel like that it just kind of reminds me of the Kylo and Rey fight in Force Awakens. The intentions of each person in that fight is different.
Right.
He's not trying to outright just take her down. He's trying to get her to listen. He's not trying to just like, what's the fastest, most efficient way I can just take her down.
Yeah, he didn't go there with the intent to kill her.
Right, and that's her intention, is I'm going to kill this man. So when you're coming to the fight with different intentions, that also plays on how the fight is going to play out.
Right.
So I think people who were like, it shouldn't have been that much of an issue, you know, again, it's like Vision versus What If Vision, you know, killing Thanos. Like, come on.
Right.
Like, it's different intentions with the fight. The only complaint that I have, which might just be like a dirty fighter complaint, is like, you know, she has a prosthetic leg. Why don't you rip that leg off? Like, you want her to sit and listen, maybe that's cruel, but if you get hold of it and you give it a good yank and you just take it off.
It depends if it's that easy to take off. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. And I don't know if this is like, you know, hey, it's Stark Tech prosthesis now, you know, but I'm just kind of like, you know, it's a prosthetic leg, so why don't you just go for that leg? Just knock her down. That's just me. Maybe that's a dirty fighter because I'm a small person, you know, and it's like, if I'm in a fight, I gotta fight to kill because everybody else is bigger than me. But it was a good fight scene, and the poor tracksuit guy, and he got scared and shot himself in the foot.
Yeah.
In the foot when everybody else is you know, getting pulled. But I mean, it's very good setup, and I like where we ended it when wanting to call her Kate, Yelena is texting Kate.
Yeah.
You know, like, I did what you said. I went and found out who hired me. Guess what? It's your mom. You know, and then we get the picture.
The big guy.
Yeah, the big guys, and I like that they didn't leave it vague. Like Clint says, Kingpin.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't do like a vague. Like, he just said the big guy, and it's a bald man in a white suit, but, you know, it could be anyone. But he went ahead and said Kingpin, and then, of course, all the reviewers I watch, everybody's freaking out, and everybody's got to watch, and then, of course, once Vincent's name comes up through the credits, then everybody really has the big freak out, and, you know, it could be this, and it could be this, and it could be this, like you said, we'll talk about, you know, the stuff. But I thought it was a really good development episode. It's the kind of development that you need with the plot lines of you're starting to weave them back together, which is what Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't do. because you can clearly see. And I like that we see, like, Jack is basically just a nice guy who likes swords. But
so to kind of talk about that, because, like, you know, you had mentioned, you know, why he didn't have to be like a straight villain, right? And I wasn't too familiar with the character of the swordsman myself, but he actually started out as a hero, took a little bit of a villainous turn, and is back to a hero in the current, like, comic books. So not having that kind of foreknowledge, like, I just assumed immediately, obviously, villain, because he's got the twirling mustache, you know, and everything too. So
I think that's what you're meant to assume too,
right.
Especially from the first couple episodes. Everybody's like, "Who is this guy?" Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's so obvious that he's got to be the bad guy that he can't possibly be the bad guy.
Right. So I did like that twist. Also, as we get into, like, episode 6. I believe I immediately had texted you at the end of episode 5, probably right at the beginning of episode 6 or something like that, where I was just like, I hate your brain.
Yeah.
Because you figured out the big twist within, like, the first episode or first 2 episodes. And go back, listen to episode 1 and 2 review. Leslie called it. Basically.
I did, and I insisted we recorded it.
Yes,
so that it would be there for posterity.
Yes, it is preserved for posterity's sake. So let's go ahead and kind of wrap up episode 5, because I think we've talked about the major points
and covered it. Yeah,
and like we both said, like, it is a filler episode because it is primarily exposition, but it doesn't feel like a filler episode. I think that's the key difference is. When you get to a lot of filler episodes, right, it's one of those things where it's like, we have to have this episode where it's primarily practical, it's a lot of exposition because we got to save budget for the other stuff. But the way they do it, as we talked about, they interweave all the different plot lines. They're bringing it all to fruition to finally come to the climax of the finale. And that's what Falcon and Winter Soldier never did. It did some of that, but it didn't do it in the way where it felt satisfying. So when we get to this episode 5 of Hawkeye, when we call it a filler episode, it's a filler episode only in the sense of it's taking the time that it needs to establish how all of these plot lines fit together and why things are the way they are. So
it's fiber, not sugar.
Exactly. So for, like, a score out of this episode, I'm probably 4, because, like, I don't really have any complaints. I mean, 4 might seem a little bit low since we kind of praised it, but I don't want to give it, like, perfect score because I'm sure if I were to go back and rewatch it, I might find some actual faults, like minor things to really complain about. But overall, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought that they did the adequate focusing on Yelena that I was worried they wouldn't do, and also worried that if they did it, it would feel too crammed in or
like take
forced.
Up too much time.
Yeah, and it really didn't. Just having that scene between her and Kate did everything it needed to do. So that's why I go ahead and give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm kind of debating between, like, a 4 and a 4.5.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about what I want to score the next episode to, and I don't know. I'm floating somewhere in there between 4 and 4.5.
All right. Well, maybe you can make up your mind when we get through episode 6, because I already know what I will score episode 6 at. But let's go ahead and move into episode 6, which I gotta pull it up here on my phone since my phone's almost dead.
Finale.
Come on, one more. So this is Christmas. So again, like, just the basic plot of this is Clint, Kate, and Maya face their past as the tracksuits and Kazi come for Eleanor. Yelena comes for Clint, and Clint and Kate come to save her mother from the tracksuits. The Kingpin looms over it all after Eleanor tells him that she's no longer going to help him. So
we open with Vincent.
Yes, we do. And again, one of the best casting choices I think they ever could have made was making Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin, back even just in the Netflix show, not alone in Hawkeye. So one of the things that has come out since the episodes have aired is him saying he is the same Kingpin from the Netflix shows. And again, kind of, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Mild spoiler alert for Spider-Man No Way Home. So stop listening for a couple seconds. Even though it is a minor spoiler, it does not spoil anything else about No Way Home. It's a very minor thing, but again, I know my reaction when I saw it in theaters. I don't want to ruin that for anyone, so if you have not seen No Way Home, just kind of tune out for the next couple seconds or minutes. Then we have, of course, Charlie Cox show up in No Way Home as Matt Murdock, and we already had Feige confirm that it's the same Matt Murdock. So now we have Kingpin, and we have XYZ character, so in case only people skipped only a couple seconds ahead, from the Netflix shows. Like I said, because I have seen a lot of people kind of question, well, if the Netflix shows are now canon, well, where do they take place? And like I've said, and ad nauseum, they never mention anything past the Battle of New York. So I would contend to say that all of the Netflix shows take place in between Avengers and Age of Ultron. And of course now with time skips and time jumps and all that stuff, who knows where they're at now in their lives. But it has given me the reason to kind of go back and finish the final seasons of each of the shows from Netflix. And I had, I think, texted you or messaged you. And I don't know because I still haven't finished Daredevil Season 3, but with what Kingpin is dealing with there is with the Albanians, and the name sounded like Kazi's family name. So I would be really interested to see with how Daredevil Season 3 wraps up, where if he takes control of them, and that's where the origins of kind of like the Tracksuit Mafia really kind of comes into fruition, that then explains the connections here in Hawkeye, since Vincent has said he is the same Kingpin. So we know that these shows are connected now. If you want to know where they kind of fit in the timeline, just put them right in between Avengers and Age of Ultron. All 3 seasons of Daredevil, all 2 seasons of Punisher, all 3 seasons of Jessica Jones, 2 seasons of Iron Fist, 2 seasons of Luke Cage. Because now we've opened that door where the actors, if they want to have them come back, can come back. Which I'm really excited for now, and I'm really happy to see that we get these guys back, especially Vincent as Kingpin.
I don't know if they'll get everybody exactly the same.
Right.
But I think they'll probably, like, obviously, as we said, we got specific XYZ character. We have Vincent. I don't know if they're going to go 100% the same with everybody else. Like, obviously, the one that's been in contention is Danny.
Yeah.
You know, we might get a completely different Danny, but it's like, oh, that all was him, but not.
Well, I think we've had it within the MCU itself. If they recast Danny, they recast Danny. But as long as it's basically the same Danny from the shows, right, I think we'll all be fine. And I don't want them to choose anyone else but Mike Coulter for Luke Cage, because he did such a fantastic job as Luke.
Yeah. So there's they might recast some. You know, and it all depends too on what their plans are going forward. You know,
right?
Because I just love to be in a planning room to like see, because I'm like, you know, like the plotter versus the pantser when you're writing, and I'm like a plotter, and I'm like, a lot of this sometimes feels to me like Five Head, like they've planned this out. You know, like how many years, and I'm like, I want to see like the wall with the string, you know, and like, and this is what we're doing, you know, and this is where it's gonna go, and it's gonna be this thing and that thing, and I'm like, I want to see the wall.
You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about stress? Okay, I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress? What the hell are you talking about? This company is being bled like a stuck pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out. Take a look at this. Jesus Christ, that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia, this name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail, well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. He's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh, shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe. All right, so I start marching my way down to Carol in HR, and I knock on her door, and I say, Carol, I gotta talk to you about Pepe. And when I open the door, what do I find? There's desk in that office, there is no Carol in HR. Mac, half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
Okay, Charlie, I'm gonna have to stop you right there.
You know, and bringing him back and then having Vincent confirm it's the Kingpin from Netflix. So
yeah. And the
it's
good
great.
thing about the way that they brought him into this, because like I haven't heard if they're actually like we're going to do a new Daredevil or we're going to do a new.
There's been rumors. That's as far as I know.
Rumors are like until
Right.
they make an announcement. So what they have specifically announced is Echo, which I
Right.
think is Maya's show.
Correct.
And the way that they brought Kingpin into this, I think is a good way that they can like sprinkle those other Netflix show characters back in. So they may not be getting their own specific shows anymore, but you can't tell me that some of the other characters might not sprinkle in to the Echo show. You know, like
I can at least tell you this again. It's another rumor, so I mean they haven't confirmed definitively yet, but knowing that it's an upcoming MCU show, and I would have to recommend this of anyone who's not aware, because I wasn't aware until recently. You can, if you have Disney Plus, go and check their 2021 Marvel special, I think is what it's called on there. But if you go into the Marvel section of the Disney Plus app, you'll find it. It's about a 14-minute long video, and it kind of showcases everything from 2021, starting with WandaVision all the way up through Hawkeye, but then what's to come. So they show brief trailers for Moon Knight, for Ms. Marvel, and for She-Hulk, and What If Season 2. Now, the rumor I have heard is that they will have Daredevil show up in She-Hulk. Now, whether that's going to actually be true or not, that's up in the air. But it makes sense since
lawyers.
She's a lawyer, and it would be perfect to bring Matt Murdock into that scene. So let's hope that this continuing, especially let's have it start with Vincent in Hawkeye, and bring in, like you said, they don't necessarily need to have their own shows, but have them sprinkled in.
Yeah, you don't have to do a big whole thing where you're dedicating all your money and everything into they get own specific show. But if they're in a place and it makes sense that like, hey, this person would be around,
right?
Like, drop them in.
Yeah,
that's what you can do now, because everybody can say, oh well, these are all canon now, the Netflix shows. Well, they're there. You can go watch them. You don't have to do a whole nother 3 seasons of this show and
of building it up or anything like that.
They'll go watch those, and then you just sprinkle the character in, wherever they're at.
We can do once we get back on track because we got a little distracted there.
I have not in their entirety watched all of the Netflix shows.
Right.
I have seen 3 or 4 episodes of Daredevil.
Okay.
I did not watch any Jessica Jones. I did not watch any Punisher. I watched maybe 2 episodes of Luke Cage.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty much it. And of course, I've watched more of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I don't know. That one's still iffy.
Yeah, I see. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the only one where I think Feige will put his foot down and go, that's not
because
canon.
I feel like they were very defiant.
Yeah.
Especially more so than the Netflix shows. I feel like that got very defiant. And again, like I've said before, I never really ended up finishing the newer seasons because I believe it was season 5 where they ended it was so perfect with a bow because they didn't know if they're being canceled or not. They didn't give me any reason to need any more episodes.
Right.
And
to kind of speak for like the Netflix shows like honestly were Netflix getting mad at Disney for having the audacity to try to launch their own streaming service. So like they were just like, fine, we're just going to cancel the shows. So it wasn't even like it was kind of like oh, so you think you can do your own? And let's face it, Disney has built up a fairly successful streaming service.
In the future, in 3,000 years or whatever, it'll be like the people worshipped Amazon and Google and Disney.
Well, let's just face it. At some point, it will just all be Disney or Amazon. It's kind of the question of who will own who first. Will Amazon end up buying Disney, or will Disney end up buying Amazon, and then be our overlords for the future? But so there will be some speculation when we get to a certain plot point in this episode about what may come up in the Echo show. So kind of getting back to the
Steering back.
episode. So yes, we've got Kingpin in. Eleanor's trying to get out of the deal that her husband originally got kind of into, and it still wasn't kind of clear, or at least not since I watched the episode. Did he die in the attack, or did Kingpin have him killed? I'm not sure.
It wasn't entirely clear, but I still feel like even if she didn't kill him herself, the attack was the perfect opportunity for him to disappear. Even if it was a Kingpin disappearance, that was still the perfect spot, and she was gone. Cause I don't know, maybe it's just me, but in that sequence in episode 1, she's gone for a long time when your kid's screaming,
right?
And the house doesn't seem that big, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, that was a long time.
I'm still inclined to believe he might have just died in the attack.
He might have, but she inherited all his issues. She obviously knew something was going on because they're having that fight.
Right.
You know, but I feel like, Eleanor, you've worked with Fisk for a while now. I feel like blatantly telling him, I've been keeping an insurance policy, blah, blah, blah. Like, that was a dumb move.
Well, yeah.
Because this whole time, I feel like she's been doing really good, like, making fairly smart moves, you know, of how she's setting this up, working for this. And I'm like, that was a dumb move. So now I don't know if you were just a good lackey, you know, like, are you in... Because I felt like she was a little more intelligent than that. Like, you know, the way that she's setting, like when Kate told her last episode, we found a lot of stuff on Jack, and she's like,
and she managed to set him up
miraculously. Like, he's been set up for it. You know, like, I'm like, so it to me appears like she's a little more intelligent than that. That seems like a dumb move to be like, yeah, I'm going to threaten Kingpin. Like, what? Oh, I have an insurance policy. Like, I wouldn't tell him that.
Right.
I'd die and let the insurance policy come out. Like,
well, I mean, she doesn't want to die, but
you know what I mean? Like, I'd be dead first and then have him have to deal with the aftermath of that.
Well, and it also may have been...
Tell him.
It may have been something it may have been really more motivated by Kate. You know, I think Kate
that's the thing I said, is she loves her daughter.
Right. And that maternal instinct kind of overrode the cutthroat killer, essentially, aspect that she had. But so we have that kind of culminate. We have, you know, they basically figure out that Kingpin is going to take her out. And so we have kind of we have the arrow montage of them building all the different arrows and labeling them so she doesn't mistakenly use the wrong one. We have the LARPers involved. The costumes are finished. So basically, I know we're kind of like jumping over a whole lot of stuff, but we'll be talking about this. We're already at like 40 minutes here talking about these two episodes. So to not like just kind of... Again, I'm assuming that most of the people who are watching this video have already seen the episode, so you know what we're talking about. So we get basically the big fight scene at the tower, and right in front of the
party.
Right in front of the Christmas tree.
You're gonna skip the party part.
Well, I mean, the party part just like sets everything up. Like you have the LARPers there, kind of running as
Elena in her beautiful green coat and amazing hair.
Yes, and I mean, Florence Pugh is just I very attractive young lady, but a very great actress, and I think she's perfect.
I have a hairstylist every day.
Just got to become an actress. But yeah, you have kind of their chasing because she's going after Clint. So Kate's kind of running interference with her. Clint's trying to protect Eleanor. So you've got him kind of keep an eye out for everything else. And so it just kind of all culminates into a nice, fun. I love the kind of tracking shot of Kate and Yelena struggling and basically tug of warring through the offices and stuff like that.
Two different skill levels, but I like that. I mean, because obviously I feel like Yelena could kill her.
But she doesn't want to.
Funny, right?
You know?
Yeah, and it's the comedy.
That's like the whole funny thing with like stop making me like you, and Yelena's like I can't help it, type of thing.
It's the new Hawkeye and the new Black Widow,
and essentially it is
BFFs.
And then so we get to what's like the great kind of fight scene down on the ice rink. My favorite part out of the entire fight scene is using the Pym arrow and then going, so what do we do now? Oh no, I have to ask Scott about that. And then the owl coming down and swooping up the truck, and we never know what happens.
Those poor men were eaten alive.
Probably. But we get to see them in their costumed glory. Okay, so let's talk about what's probably what I've seen to be the most controversial part about the episode. It's not even Clint and Yelena, but people complaining about Kate being able to take on Kingpin.
She didn't.
Exactly. She held her ground.
She's trying. She gets slapped down at every opportunity, and the only way that she kind of won, and that's in like quotes, is because she used the way too dangerous arrow.
Right.
In an explosion, as we already saw when Eleanor rammed him with the car. And
got shot straight in the chest with an arrow.
Right. Like he's fine, but I think it would be more ridiculous if she like went fist to fist with him and was able to like punch him out, and
exactly.
This is like she literally gets flung to the ground every time she tries to bull rush him. Like, what are you gonna do? And the only way that she makes a win, and I say win like in light,
it's got an
like,
asterisk.
Yeah, it's got a little C footnote, is because of the explosion arrow, and that's not like. That's not you take it as a win, right? But that's not like.
But because as we see, he gets away. Like as the cops are entering into the toy store,
he's not there.
FOA shorts, there he's gone.
He's gone.
And then we get the beautiful, what I think is a very beautiful scene between Clint and Yelena. Like Clint willing to die.
Yeah, he's
understanding.
Letting her beat him to death, basically, because this is the point. Because what did we say? It's like how many ever months post in Infinity War or something.
Yeah, right. Like it's probably like 6 months after Endgame, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, whatever.
I just lump those two together pretty much anymore. But yeah, so she hasn't worked through all her grief yet.
Right.
So you see very much that she's in denial and she's angry. That's what those two, those emotions that are driving her. That's why she can't really hear what he's saying or anything. That's why she can't believe Kate. In the previous episode of like what happened, because it really takes that to bring her to the realization of like even if I was there, she would have fought me and I would be the one alive and she still would have jumped off, there's no way that anybody was going to stop her.
Well, not only that, it's like, because like that's the thing. Like she's like, well, why didn't you stop her? And he's like, we both know that. She was better, like she beat me. So it was like I was trying to sacrifice myself because I had nothing left, and I'm trying to honor her sacrifice because she gave me everything back.
Right.
So yeah, it was the beautiful eulogy we needed for Black Widow, because as monumental as the sacrifices in Endgame, ultimately there's no eulogy for her. We get Tony's, like we get Tony's funeral, which rightfully so. We get Cap's kind of ending, but Nat is just dead, So and then with the Black Widow film, it's in between Civil War and Infinity War, but like so we know we're not going to get any resolution there. And the post credit scene, the post credit scene just really is more of a setup for Hawkeye show. But there was nothing else, like nothing. That's why I would even think like if you remove the Hawkeye post credit scene, even if you make that the second one, because I can't remember if there were one or two in Black Widow, but if you remove the one with the Countess and you put in what was in episode 5, it would have felt more interesting for Black Widow to be like, okay, I'm interested to see what Yelena's going to do, knowing what I know about Endgame.
Yeah.
Versus a very inconsequential scene that just didn't feel like it amounted to anything at the time, when Black Widow came out. So it's very well done. Now the next controversial scene, and this isn't controversial meaning like people are up in arms about it necessarily, or that they don't believe that this is how it should have happened, because it's actually comics accurate. But as we do see Kingpin getting away, he's met with Maya.
Yeah.
And Maya shoots him. So this because as I will say, and I will quote also the fantastic show Psych, no body, no crime.
Right.
So,
nobody. He ain't dead.
My brother goes, well, you hear a thump, and I'm like, well, yeah, you're gonna hear a thump, but you don't know if it's her, if it's him, whatever. Yeah. But I did watch some videos, kind of talking about, because I will stand by, you don't bring Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin for one episode and kill him.
Right, and if you do, it's on screen.
Yeah,
maybe.
You show it. You show it. So,
right. So that's one of those things that, like, when Infinity War happened, and everybody's like, oh, they're all dusting. I'm like, there's another movie. I can't be upset yet until I know what happens in the next movie.
The only way you can be upset is when you have I don't want to go or whatever. When Peter is you know, I don't feel well, Mr.
I'm
Stark.
not like, oh, they're all dead now. I'm like, there's a whole nother movie. I cannot cry over lost characters yet.
And quite frankly, that was why my dad didn't like Infinity War. He's like, I know they're going to come back. But then he liked Endgame a lot more than Infinity War.
Yeah. So, like, with this death, I'm like, yeah, we hear a shot and then we hear a thud.
Yeah.
That could be he got the gun from her and shot her, and that's her. She could have shot him, as she did in the comics, and he's still alive.
Yeah, well, so in the comics, he actually loses his eyesight. So that's...
like, shoot him in the face? Or
well, I don't know, because it was from 98, so it was long before I was actually... collecting comics, but it is comic book accurate that he gets shot by her. So, and this is where speculation into Echo, because we did see him take an arrow to the chest, like literally to the heart, and survive.
In Kate's face when he just knocks it,
just pulls it out, and it's like, and then he comes bull rushing at her. So it's like, and we know that like Kingpin himself is very thick-skinned. With all the weight and stuff like that, and you know.
Did I watch one of the Spider-Man episodes where he was like, "Let me show you how many pounds of muscle," because everybody thinks he's fat, but he's like it's muscle.
Right. So and I'm sure. I mean, I don't know for sure because I haven't finished Daredevil season 3. But if there's any powers or anything like that, I would assume it would have been introduced in season 3 of Daredevil. But we just know that of Kingpin himself, like he can take pretty hard hits.
Take a beating.
So even a bullet, like depending on where she even shot him, you know, it might knock him back. So that's why we hear the thud. But my speculation is he's not dead, and he's going to be heavily involved in the Echo show.
Oh yeah, I think that my guess is that she does shoot him, and he does fall down, and she believes that he's dead, and she thinks it's taken care of, and the Echo show is gonna, I don't know, somehow it's gonna go some way, and she's gonna find out that he ain't dead, and she's gonna need help, and maybe that's how we're gonna get Matt Murdock into it, you know. So I'm just like trying to figure out how they're gonna weave it.
Excuse me.
You know, but I don't. It's either gonna be she shot him and she thinks he's dead, or you know, it's going to be the other way, reversed, and then it's still going to be her trying to find him or something.
Right. So I see it more of like, you know, he's going to be grievously injured, and he's going to do everything coming after her, and it's going to be her trying to figure out how to stop him, essentially. Because, I'm sorry, you just don't bring him back for one episode and kill him off. Especially, again, with XYZ character showing up in No Way Home.
Right.
So,
like I saw some people debate that too, and I feel like it's just like a philosophical academic debate.
Right.
Because it really is the whole, like, you don't go through all of that just for that. And if you do, you do it on screen.
Well, it's a common trope through many shows where you end on the gunshot, but you don't show the after effect.
Who got shot? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's very much a tactic that has been used ad nauseum.
Like, if anybody watches Murdoch Mysteries, that, you know, murder mystery show, it's Canadian, and it's season 10 or maybe 11, I don't remember which, but the season finale is like the three constables go into the church. It's a setup, you know, and when it ends, all you know is that one of them is for sure dead, according to the people who arrive on the scene.
Right. Which
constable is it? You know, is it your favorite? Is it George? Is it Henry? Is it Jackson? you know, and everybody's freaking out. And I'm like, no body, they ain't dead. You know, you're not going to.
Well, even to go
it just pans up.
To do a MCU adjacent show, since it's an actor that's been in both the MCU. Sherlock season 1, you know, it ends with them at the pools and the bombs, and you're like, and you basically have the clicking or ticking clock, and you're just like, and it ends, and you're like, oh, do the bombs go off? Do they not go off? Like, does John shoot him or whatever? You know, so it's or is John Moriarty, you know, type of thing, and it's like you end that on that type of note where you do not show what happens. It is up in the air. Now, if Vincent says, I don't want to come back as Kingpin anymore, which I don't think is going to happen, then you show the body at the beginning of the Echo show or something like that. Like, until you address it head on and show for a fact that he is dead, he's not dead. Right. So, and I just don't think you take a character with that potential and that much love, and especially with this kind of growing idea that those Netflix show characters are now going to appear in the MCU in some form or manner. You don't just get rid of one of the biggest and iconic ones. You know, you just don't do that.
It's like an afterthought.
Right. Because, like, if you do, you ruin a lot of goodwill that you just earned. Even goodwill you just earned in No Way Home, I think, would be hurt a little bit.
Definitely damaged.
Because I don't think you take these moves, you don't say these things as Kevin Feige, and then kind of take it back, you know, type of thing. And that's where, you know, Kevin Feige, for all the criticisms we do have of him, he is a planner. I mean, he had, back when this was starting, he had movies planned up to 2020. Then he had movies planned up to 2024. So I'm sure he's getting his plans through 2030 right now for this to continue on. And again, when we talk about No Way Home in a separate video, the possibilities that open up from No Way Home is just amazing. And then
mind-boggling.
Well, when just even Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, what that's going to do and how that makes What If very important now. Super important, in fact. And now that I'm even seeing some images, we're going to have 3 Doctor Strange variants. So that's going to be really interesting to see. Defender variant, our main Doctor Strange, and Supreme Strange. So it's I would say that, like, because I think when we started off Phase 4, what started off Phase 4? We had
Black Widow.
Was Black Widow the start? I guess Black Widow was the start, or would technically Far From Home would be. No, I guess that's more of the Cap end to Phase 3.
Yeah, so, I think that's the Cap.
So I guess Black Widow was the start then. Well, we got. WandaVision, I guess, is technically the start of Phase 4.
Well, technically ended up, but the way that they had intended.
Right. But when we talk about the movies, at least, for sure, when it comes to the films, Black Widow was a little lukewarm. There was some fear with Shang-Chi, but not a whole lot. And Shang-Chi proved to be very good and a very good entry for a new character. Eternals, which I know you haven't seen yet, again, kind of went back to... I'm a little worried. And then we get to No Way Home, where it's like, okay, I'm on these mainline films of the existing characters. I think we're on a good track, especially with Doctor Strange being the next one. Now we have to wait till, I think, March or May. May, yeah. It was March. It got moved to May.
Right now it's sitting on May 6th, I think.
They, much like I said about Spider-Man, they better not push it again, because the hype right now is very high, and that's, again, I think why Black Widow suffered, because Black Widow got pushed because of COVID, that the hype and momentum it had died. Same with Eternals, not so much with Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi was going to go either way, where it was going to be a fun, like, action film, regardless of it being an MCU film, I think, because they just did what they wanted to do and had fun with it. Eternals tried to be too, I think, serious and impactful, and it fell apart with too many characters and not really getting time to care about the characters. But Spider-Man, very great entry. Doctor Strange, just from that teaser trailer, think is going to be an amazing entry. I'm excited for Thor. I'm excited for all the other films that are set to come out, as long as they don't get postponed. So you would ruin, I think, like a lot of goodwill that Hawkeye has earned, that a lot of the other MCU shows have earned, if you start disregarding some of these characters. But I do think we're going to be, because I know some people are kind of worn out. I think it's even evident kind of in our statistics of the episodes we do where we focus on MCU content, where they're kind of burnt out on the superhero stuff. But
yeah,
I think Spider-Man No Way Home really revitalizes that. I think shows like Hawkeye, WandaVision, Loki, What If really help that, because they're approaching it in a respectful way, but also in new ways that we haven't seen quite done before.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, something that just, like, from watching, as I've watched episode 2 of Boba Fett, or chapter 2, is the ability you have in these shows to take a look at some of the smaller details, because you have more time and you don't have to fit something into 2.5 hours or 3 hours. So you can take a little bit more time. We can sit with the characters a little longer. We can do some good development, which really isn't something you have a big opportunity to do when you've really got to meet that time limit of how long people are going to sit in the theater, you know, and watch this movie.
Well, and that's because I've heard criticisms of, even just specifically of Hawkeye before even really like the show was really in a few episodes in, because I know the person who made the criticism actually likes the show, but they said, yeah, they promised him a movie and now he's got a Disney Plus show, and like how people look down upon that. And it's like, actually, I want more of the shows per se, and save the big movies, spectacles. Save the big spectacles for like No Way Home, because I think No Way Home, one, it took its time. Yeah, it's a longer film, but it doesn't feel long, and it took its pacing. It did the pacing very well, because it's got characters in the moments established very well that you didn't necessarily need that. But when you do if you were to do Hawkeye as a film, there's no way you do the character development, the character introductions, the moments feeling earned, the exposition scene between Kate and Yelena. You can't fit all of that. Obviously, it's basically a 6-hour movie, essentially. Yeah. And I think you get more out of that than you would out of a 2-hour Hawkeye film.
Yeah, I think there was this look, especially like when TV was more like, you got to do 22 episodes in a season, you got to do this, you got to do that. I think now, like in this golden age of television, when you have these streaming services and you look at things, when you could do like a 6-hour movie, it's a lot better quality. You're not trying to, we've got to fill out 22 episodes of a season. It doesn't have to be that. You don't have to do that. You can have 6 good episodes, and it's quality over quantity.
Right.
And this allows you to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, like, because this is something I've been saying for a long time now, is if you want the superhero stuff to succeed, you have to look at television being the better medium to take that time. And quite frankly, because as you brought it up with Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, watching episode 2, I'm sitting there going like, although I don't like the split focus of the show right now, but I will say, like, with what it focused on in episode 2, I really liked. But you look at the moments that are there, and you look at the CGI and the effects, and it all looks really good, because they're taking a movie budget and spreading it out amongst 6 episodes, and knowing where to take the breaks of the very effects-heavy moments, and having those be character exposition moments, or even action scenes that just don't require a whole lot of visual effects. And then when you have, maybe mild spoiler for Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2, you have the train sequence. And that looks amazing.
Really good.
I mean, there were some flaws here and there in the Hawkeye with special effects, particularly some green screen moments that kind of annoyed me, but were mild at worst. You know, they weren't that bad. But then you look at episode 2 of Boba Fett, and it's a train heist with what looks like an actual hyper train, you know, or a floating train, whatever you want to call it. So I think if you can approach it from that aspect, when you're talking about from a budgetary perspective, if you know how to pace it out and you know where you want the visual effects to go, you can make it look
really
just
good.
like if you're watching it as a movie. So, because that's always the thing that people, when they complain about the Transformers movies, focusing too much on the human aspect. Sorry, you can't take a huge budget. The budget for that to have the Transformers be in 99% of the film is going to be astronomical if you want it to look good. That's why Michael Bay always broke it up with, you have a big action sequence at the beginning, you have a very long kind of exposition stuff in the middle, and you have the big action sequence at the end, because that's where the visual effects money's going. So with a show like Hawkeye, even though there were those kind of mild moments, I think that was episode 3, with the car chase, when you get to episode 6, visual effects wise, it looks great. And in fact, you have the one-on-one with Kingpin. You don't have to do anything super visual effects outside of the arrows, so you can have it look good and still feel impactful. So I think that's what Disney Plus is doing right with their shows, and even Netflix to an extent, although Netflix doesn't do it that great. And also, I don't know how Netflix does their budgets, because some shows look really good, some shows look really crappy. And they're nowadays they're worse than average network television when it comes to canceling programs, which is why I want a show like The Witcher to succeed, because it is a very good show at its core. It has faults, but I don't want it to fall into the Netflix trap. Now, if Netflix came out tomorrow and said, all right, any new shows we're introducing, we have a 3-year plan, I'm fine with that, because you pan it out. You're telling me it has a start date and an expiration date. That's all I need. That's why I was fine when they said Lost in Space was going to only be 3 seasons, because I'm like, okay, I know I can invest the rest of my time in the Lost in Space and not worry about being left with cliffhangers. Whereas a bunch of other shows, hey, they're getting the first season, big cliffhangers at the end. We're going to axe them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So
I've always been a proponent of, I feel like when you're doing a show, you need to have an end in mind, an end point in mind. Because otherwise you get this crappy television that just, you get these ridiculous, you get
Lost season 6.
They got this person and their relationship's just fine, and now they got to throw a wrench into it, so we have something dramatic for the episode, and now we've got to do this so that we have something interesting, and it's so boring and so repetitive and just so crappy television, that you don't need that. I feel like the days of clicking on those kind of sitcoms are over.
Right.
At least for some of us, because I'm like, I can't sit through all that crap.
No.
I'm not interested in sitting through all that.
And I think it's great because as much as we might want second seasons from Hawkeye or second seasons from Falcon and Winter Soldier or WandaVision, I think the best idea that they have is to approach it as, we have 1 season. We have 6 episodes, or 9 episodes in WandaVision's case. Let's tell our story, and let's get it done. And then if we get a season 2, or if there's a real demand for a season 2, we'll plan for a season 2. But if there's not, we're not going to worry about it. We told the story that we wanted to tell.
Yeah, I feel like it's approaching it like this is one comic book.
Yeah.
And here's your one, here's what's the one story you're going to tell for this book that we're going to flip through in 6 hours,
6 issues, essentially, and which is about the normal kind of average run of an arc in a comic book.
And I think that's a good way to plan these out in the future, too, of, like I said, I want to be in that planning room where all the things connect, because it's like, okay, here's where this show and this is what it's going to be about, and here's the next movie, and now here's the show that's going to come in between, and then, how it's going to go from here to here to here, and, how they're all going to connect, because I feel like going forward, they can do a little more investment with letting us develop the characters in the shows, and then when you have the big spectacle moment, when you have a big, let's say Multiverse of Madness is going to be amazing, so you have this big, amazing movie, and then we can go back down to the little show, and we can get to know these characters we know nothing about a little bit more, and then we'll go back up to this amazing movie, and I think that's a really good pace. And then it's not like we've got to pack 6 movies into a year. Maybe you only do 3, and you do 4 or 5 shows or something like that.
even looking at how Hawkeye ends, you have Kate coming to Clint's for Christmas and everything.
The dog did go to the farm.
And the dog did go to the farm.
I don't know that they adopted him, but the dog did go to the farm.
But I think they actually did. But I could be wrong. But you have the way you have it end is you have her kind of trying to come up with horrible names for herself, and Clint just like, oh my God, I've got to deal with this. But it ends there.
Yeah.
There could, if they wanted to do a season 2, they could. If they didn't want to do a season 2, it's fine. It's there. Like, I heard speculation, or at least the what people would think about a season 2 would be, you have Laura and Clint kind of lead or guide the Young Avengers, because we've got Kate, depending on what we get with Wiccan, and I can't remember what his brother's name is. But if you get them to kind of come back in Multiverse of Madness, if you get Isaiah's grandson, who kind of becomes Young Patriot, I think is the name of the character. If you start the Young Avengers,
Cassie Lang.
Yeah, you could, and that one I think it would be best as an MCU show rather than a movie, because you're going to have multiple young characters learning together, and
we need to invest time into.
Exactly. And then even if you don't even get a Hawkeye season 2, you could still take Clint and Laura and make them part of the Young Avengers show and still have it feel like a consistent build off of Young Avengers. Because quite frankly, let's look at it this way. Even if the shows outside of Loki don't have multiple seasons, you can view them all as WandaVision season 1, Loki, or was it Falcon and Winter Soldier season 2, Loki season 3, What If season 4, Hawkeye season 5, so on and so forth. Like, you don't, just because they all have different titles, doesn't mean you can't treat them like it's actually one big giant show. And we're getting these multiple episodes and multiple seasons that way, and each one is building and improving off the other. Right now, I think what did we say? 1 for 5 or 4 for 5 or something like that.
4 to 1. That's
4 to 1. Like 4 successes, 1 failure, in our opinions. So to wrap everything up, because we're going a little bit long here, and actually I've been more participatory than I thought I would be.
You would be. 2 things.
Yes, 2 things before we wrap it up.
Well, one thing that I saw mentioned that I looked up a little bit, but not like a ton, was Laura in the speculation. She's Mockingbird, I guess, because of the watch says Agent 19, and I think 19 is Buffy's. Well, but I'm like, but her name is Laura, but I don't know. But we're
splitting hairs
something
there, yeah,
like something there is going to be, obviously she was a SHIELD agent, Agent 19. Was she like the original Mockingbird?
Yeah.
I don't know, but there's definitely something there in that. I liked the people who also pointed out that Tony said it first, and he said just an agent of some kind in Age of Ultron.
Right, that's right.
And
yes. And that's the other thing too, because like, we might have complaints when we get to Age of Ultron and our review of that, of giving him the family and not having any real kind of build up or idea of who they are. This show was able to do it. It was able to expand on his family and the importance, and give her more to do rather than just be the housewife,
Right. Yeah. So the second thing is just a random that I saw in lots of comments across the ones I watched on YouTube, was New Yorkers actually pointing out that owl was like a reference to, I guess, last year when they brought the tree in, there was still an owl in it.
I think I remember that, yeah.
So they named it Rocky, and of course had to like save it and I guess nurse it back to health if it was injured or just sick or scared out of its mind from wherever the tree came from, and released it back. But everybody was like, it's a reference to Rocky the Owl. So, I just thought that was cute.
That is cute. So, all right. So score-wise for me on this episode, and then I'll give an overall seasonal score or series score. 4 out of 5, or 4.5 out of 5. That's what I wanted to say. I really enjoyed it. I liked Kingpin being back full force. Not really much to complain about. I would like more of a definitive answer, whether it came from Feige or someone else, that Kingpin is or isn't dead, but I'm also willing to wait and see.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get that in the show.
So, I just, again, I don't want to give it a perfect score, especially when I know of something I will be giving a perfect score when we do a video on it at some point. I don't want to give out perfect scores too much, but I will say overall series wise, pretty much 4.5. You know, I really enjoyed it. I think it is everything that Falcon and Winter Soldier did wrong. You know, when it comes to telling its story, respecting the characters, and showing us a bright future for the MCU and where things can go. So I really enjoyed it, and yeah, it just really highlights what Falcon and Winter Soldier did terribly.
I think I'll go ahead and do 4.5. I'll match you for the last one and do 4.0, 4.5. Okay. For the season, I'm gonna go ahead and give it 5.0. It was just perfect. Like this was great. I'm sitting here in my head trying to think about the other 4 and like how I would rank them. And you're coming off of this one, so you feel like that one's the best. But if you go back and watch Loki, you know, that one might be the best. You go back and watch WandaVision. I don't know.
So I can tell you, because they're all pretty much kind of tied in my opinion outside of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So for ranking for me, it's kind of almost in order of release, like WandaVision and then Loki. Okay, I'll put Hawkeye in front of What If. And not because What If did anything terrible, but again, like What If had some issues, had some episodes that weren't stellar, and some stuff that I felt wasn't really needed outside of like the big stuff that comes out of What If. But last place is always going to be Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, I know.
It is the biggest disappointment out of this release slate.
Yeah, I could probably agree with last is Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then What If, and so then it's kind of like between the other 3, almost a 3-way tie.
Yeah, basically.
You're trying to figure out which one you liked best. I would almost say Hawkeye first, because it feels.
It's not what I thought you were going to go with.
Well, it just feels like it's simple, it's quick, it's a casual. I could sit on a Saturday and just binge all 6 episodes while I'm crocheting. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I can pay attention, but I'm not pulled away. Like if I'm sitting there like crocheting or whatever, and I'm not like pulled away from what I'm doing or anything like that. I feel like Loki, to me, is almost more in line with the movies.
Yeah.
Because of what it sets up.
Right.
So I almost feel like Loki, that first season, needs to like be a movie, like somewhere in between. I don't know. Like it definitely has to happen before Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Right.
But it has to it has to be like up there, and then WandaVision. I don't know. It was really good too, but I don't know. It's not one that I feel like I could just sit, because you do kind of get a little bit tired with the first few episodes.
Being the sitcom focused.
Yeah, and you don't feel like it picks up really until closer to the end. So, I mean, maybe WandaVision will be third, and it would be between Hawkeye and Loki, but I feel like Loki really, really pulls you in, at least for me.
Yeah.
So I would just be sitting doing nothing but like staring at the
See, I would have thought you would have picked Loki first just because of Tom Hiddleston.
But no, not just because of that. No. But I do feel like it sets up so much for the whole Phase 4 that it almost has to be bumped up to the movie level. And again, not that one's better than the other, like movie levels and show levels, but if you're talking like separating them into like, I feel like it has to be there, because I feel like if you don't watch it, you don't get the setup for the entire Phase 4.
Let's just say whoever's responsible, I guess, for breaking the world or the universe will be the one who wins the most, because I still love the meme of it's Wanda pointing at Loki, pointing at Spider-Man, pointing at Doctor Strange, pointing at Wanda, going, "You all did it!" Like, who's responsible for the craziness of the multiverse? So, I can understand where it gets kind of complicated, and I agree. Like with the criticisms of WandaVision, I do agree. Like, I have tried to kind of go back and start from episode 1, and it's like, I want to get to kind of like episode 4 or 5 where the things like really kind of pick up and
where things get
more interesting.
Right up,
because like the sitcom perspective of it's intriguing, but it does wear out its welcome very fast. So I can see that, but again, I think ultimately until we get to Doctor Strange and we see how Doctor Strange plays out, I'm gonna just have to reserve how things
judgment.
again, like, because as you said, you kind of want to be in that planning room to know where things go, but also I don't want to know because I want to be surprised, right? Like, well, that's kind of where we're at with it. But yeah, it's very, very hard when it comes to ranking them accurately, because they're all outside of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and again, not at the fault of the actors in Falcon and Winter Soldier. The problem is purely in the writing. So the rest of the show has been very well.
I feel like we've harped on Falcon and Winter Soldier a lot. So I will say that talking with my normie friends or friends who were just like mildly invested into the MCU, like on a scales of like from passionate to like, but the people who are just like, I watch the shows and I watch the movies, I have talked to some of them, and a lot of them, like, I'm trying to say, like, without prompting,
right?
You know, without like, they don't really listen to our podcast or anything like that.
Well,
without prompting, they all kind of had the same complaint of like the initial story of what's her name,
Agent 13, or
the people.
Oh, the Flag Smashers.
Yeah, the Flag Smashers. That's it. Their initial story did not make sense to them. Of the people who were, they thought, again, like we had said, it should be flipped.
Right.
That initial part was like made zero sense to everybody that I've talked to. So,
because especially when we've seen characters who were blipped and are back and living normal lives.
Right. So it's that has been the main point of like, I was really confused by that. I didn't understand, but their focus is like, but I really liked watching, you know, Mackie and Sebastian Stan, you know, and I'm like, I really liked all of this stuff. That other stuff made no sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's basically like everybody that I've talked to, from normies to, you know, of course, the more passionate people, we get into more debates. But that's the same complaint across the spectrum of people, is that story point made zero sense. So it's all in the writing. It's not like, oh, you're just hating like, it's in the writing, and lots of people noticed it wasn't like,
well, because like they did the buddy cop like aspect between Sebastian and Anthony really well, and they even did a very good job with Wyatt's character, kind of trying to live up to the idolized version of Steve, but like it's everything else. And Zemo was done really well. But it's the central plot line of the Flag Smashers and their impact and being manipulated, and also kind of some of the overtly political nature of the show itself, which it didn't need to go. It felt like it hammered on too many things, and especially at the time it aired and stuff that was going on at that time probably highlighted that of the show. So I think that like it's probably one where I could watch it maybe this year or next year and not feel a lot of that tension because we're a little bit removed from it. But I still think that central storyline with the Flag Smashers is still going to grate with me because it's just, it doesn't make sense. And it ultimately pans out to nothing. It really has nothing. There's no real resolution. Like it's just an excuse to get Sam into the Cap suit.
Basically.
I mean, it's really all it is.
Everybody I talked to, that's pretty much all they cared about was Sam and Bucky and Zemo, and that was pretty much like all of those pieces of the show, and pretty much everything else was just like chaff.
Yeah, because like Sharon Carter's character gets just screwed over, and again, like it was one where it's like, okay, Captain America 4 got announced after the fact, but if Captain America 4 had been announced before, I could probably forgive some things and go, okay, they're going to address this in Captain America 4. Or even if they had said, hey, we got a season 2, so we're going to do a season 2, and it'd be like, okay, I can, then maybe some of these plot points can get resolved in season 2, but obviously that's not happening. So, but, as we go over long talking, because it's the one show you can go back and listen at all the other MCU reviews, except for WandaVision, because we hadn't seen Falcon and Winter Soldier yet. The one show that kind of sticks as a thorn in our sides is Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I think we both wanted it to succeed.
Be good, yeah.
And we both were excited to see Sam become the new Cap. But it's just everything else about the story that really falls apart for it. So, Thank you all for sticking around with us. If you've stuck around this long in the video, we really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys understanding our little break there for a little bit. So hopefully we're coming back this year stronger. We got plans to innovate, plans to improve, plans to live stream more regularly outside of even game streams. So stick around for that. I think you'll be excited to see what's coming forward, because we'll still do recorded videos, but we'll have some more interactive content coming in the future, and we'll be really excited to hear from you guys. So as always, the links and stuff will be to where our social media stuff and to where you can listen to us on audio only. Will all be in the descriptions below, and we'll talk to you guys next time.